My name is Derek. I'm 32 now, but this happened when I was 27. I had just gotten a promotion at work. Nothing life-changing, just a bump up from shift lead to manager at the warehouse I've been working at for years. What made it a big deal for me was that for once I felt like I had something to show my parents. I've always felt like the background character in my own family. My younger brother, Evan, was the golden child. He went to college, studied engineering, landed a six-figure job before turning 25. My mom would post about him constantly on Facebook, his graduation, his job offers, his new condo. Me? I was the kid who just worked with trucks. So when I got promoted, I invited them over for dinner. I even cooked, which is rare for me. It felt like maybe, finally, they'd see I was doing okay too. That night was awkward from the second they walked in. My dad barely looked around my place, just kind of nodded and said, "Smells like paint." It didn't. I hadn't painted anything. My mom gave me this tight-lipped smile, like she was trying really hard to pretend she was impressed. I tried to keep things light. Made some drinks, served up the food, even bought wine I couldn't pronounce. At one point, I mentioned the promotion, expecting some kind of reaction. My mom just blinked and said, "That's good, honey," before asking if Evan was still planning to visit Europe in the fall. I remember standing there, holding my glass, realizing they hadn't even heard what I said. Like, actually hadn't registered it. I'd planned the whole dinner around that one moment, and they just moved past it. I try not to let it get to me, but honestly, it ruined the mood. I pushed through dinner, made small talk, kept the conversation going mostly out of habit. The weirdest part was when my dad randomly asked me how I liked living in Evan's old apartment. I stared at him, confused because this place had nothing to do with Evan. I found it on Craigslist, paid my own deposit, furnished it myself over months. I said, "What are you talking about?" And he just waved it off, like maybe he was confusing it with somewhere else. My mom gave him this sharp look, like she wanted him to shut up. That's when I started to feel like something was off. Not just them being dismissive, but like there was something they knew that I didn't. After they left, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. I even texted Evan, asking if he'd ever lived here or something. He just replied, "LOL, what? No, what?" And that was it. The next morning, I noticed one of my kitchen drawers wasn't closing right. I pulled it all the way out and found this tiny sticker on the inside panel. It had Evan's name on it, like the kind you put on school supplies. Same font, same little cartoon dinosaur he always used as a kid. I sat there for like 10 minutes, just staring at it. That drawer came with the apartment. I'd never opened it that far before. And it wasn't just a sticker someone else named Evan left. I knew that exact sticker. It came from sheet Mom used to keep in her desk drawer when we were in elementary school. I called my mom that afternoon. I didn't really plan what I was going to say. I just kind of blurted it out. I told her I found something in the apartment that made it seem like Evan had lived here before, and she went completely silent. Not her usual fake curious silence. I mean like full-on dead air. After a few seconds, she said, "That's strange," and then changed the subject. Just like that. I tried to push a little more, but she got irritated and said she had to go to an appointment. No mention of what kind of appointment. Just hung up. It was like I'd stepped into some weird version of my life where everyone was playing dumb and I was the only one not in on the script. So I started digging. I looked through some old boxes I had in storage, the kind you don't open for years. Inside one, I found a framed photo of me and Evan in front of what looked like this very building. It was from when we were teenagers, maybe 15 and 13. I don't remember ever being here before moving in. In the background was a door with the same dented brass numbers my unit had. I showed it to a friend of mine, and he said, "Dude, that's your place." It gave me this sick feeling in my stomach like something was seriously wrong. I called Evan again, more insistent this time, and asked if he ever stayed here. He laughed it off again and told me to stop being weird. But his voice didn't sound casual. It sounded off, like I'd hit a nerve. That night, I barely slept. Every little creak or noise made me jump. I kept getting up to double-check the locks, looking out the peephole like someone might suddenly show up. Around 3 a.m., I sat on the floor in front of the open drawer, just staring at that damn sticker. I started thinking about the layout of the apartment, The way certain things seemed oddly familiar from the moment I moved in, even though I brushed it off at the time. Like how I instinctively opened the second cabinet above the sink for glasses, or how I knew the hallway light switch was always a little loose. Stuff that didn't make sense if I'd never been here before. But I had no memory of ever being in this place as a kid. None. I even called my aunt the next day and asked her if her family ever stayed in this complex. She said no, not that she could remember. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how many weird gaps there were in my memory from around middle school. It's not like I blacked anything out, but there are whole stretches of that time I can't really explain. Just vague impressions, like a house I can picture, but not place. I called my mom again and straight up asked her if I ever lived here as a kid. She sighed, like a long, tired sigh, and said, "We don't need to open up all that again, Derek." Then she hung up. Again. I just sat there holding the phone. What was I opening up? What did she mean by again? I started feeling like I was losing my mind. Like something happened to me here that they'd all agreed to pretend never existed. I went to the leasing office pretending I needed a copy of my lease for work, but really I wanted to ask if they had records of previous tenants. The lady at the front desk was nice enough, said she couldn't give out details, but when I casually asked how long the unit had been available before I moved in, she checked and said, "Not long. Maybe a week or two. The last guy left in a hurry." I asked if she knew his name. She shook her head, said it was confidential. Then she added something like, "Funny thing is, I think it was someone young. Place was pretty bare, except for a kid's blanket left in the closet." That hit me like a punch to the chest. I hadn't checked that closet in months. I got home, opened it, and there it was stuffed way in the back, a blue blanket with little rockets on it. The same one I had when I was 9. I brought it out and sat with it in my lap like it was radioactive. I recognized the frayed corner I used to chew on when I was scared at night. I could still smell that old, dusty fabric scent, even though it had clearly been sitting there for years. It made everything feel way too real. Like this wasn't just a coincidence or some weird mind trick. I really had lived here. I just didn't remember it. I called Evan again, didn't even say hi, just asked, "Did something happen to me here?" He went quiet. Then he said, "You need to stop asking questions, Derek. Just leave it alone," and hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to him about it. After that call, I started spiraling. I spent hours online trying to figure out how memory repression works, reading about childhood trauma, displacement, psychological defense mechanisms. None of it gave me any solid answers, just more questions. I even made an appointment with a therapist, told her everything, well, most of it, and she said maybe something did happen, but memories don't just vanish unless there's a reason. When she asked if I wanted to try regression therapy or hypnosis, I got cold feet. Something deep down told me I didn't actually want to remember. It wasn't fear of the process. It was fear of whatever I might uncover. That feeling stayed with me, like the truth was buried under this layer of fog for a reason. But here's the weirdest part. After that night with the blanket, after that call with Evan, things just stopped. The dreams I've been having, vague ones, but unsettling, always about being lost in a hallway or hearing someone yell my name from behind a locked door, they vanished. My parents never brought up the apartment again, and when I visited for Christmas a couple months later, they acted like everything was fine. Normal even. It was like whatever thread I'd been pulling just snapped on its own. The tension disappeared, but so did any sense of closure. I never got an explanation. I still live in the same apartment, and every now and then I'll find something small, like a Lego piece under the radiator or a drawing tucked behind a cabinet. That feels like mine, but from another life. And I've just learned to ignore it, because no one will talk about it, and maybe I don't want them to. Sometimes I wonder if I imagine the whole thing. Not the objects, obviously, they're real. The blanket, the sticker, the photo, they're still in a box under my bed. But the way everything unfolded, the way my parents reacted, the way Evan shut down, it makes me feel like I crossed some invisible boundary. Like I reached the edge of a story they didn't want me to read. I've even thought about moving, just to see if the feeling goes away, but part of me can't leave. Not because I like the place, but because I feel like if I go, I'll be running from something I never figured out. And if I run now, I'll never know why I forgot, or what made them all so desperate for me to stay that way. Every once in a while, like last week, for example, I'll be sitting on the couch, watching something dumb on TV, and I'll feel this strange pull. It's not visual or even really emotional. It's like a sudden awareness of the walls around me, the way the light hits a certain corner, the faint sound of the fridge humming. It's this overwhelming sense of being watched, but not in a paranoid way. More like someone is waiting. And then, just as fast as it comes, it's gone. No noise, no shadow, nothing. Just a chill in my chest and the feeling that I've already lived this exact moment before. But I can't explain how or why. And maybe the worst part of all of this is that no matter how much time passes, that feeling hasn't faded. It just stopped making sense. There was this one time a few months ago, I came home from work late. I'd been covering for someone on the night shift, and by the time I got back, it was close to 1:30 in the morning. The air inside felt off. Not cold, not warm, just heavy like the apartment had been holding its breath. I didn't notice it right away, but after I dropped my keys and stepped into the kitchen, I realized the hallway light was on. I never leave it on. I'm weird about electricity, always double-checking switches before I leave. At first, I told myself I must have forgotten, but that hallway light is a weird one. It makes this buzzing sound when it's been on too long. And it had that sound, that tired, electric hum that fills a space when it's dead quiet. I walked over, switched it off, and stood there for a second. The silence after that was so thick, I could hear my own heartbeat. I turned around to go to bed and nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw a shadow move across the floor near the bathroom. But nothing was there. No one. I checked every closet, every window, even the front door chain. Everything was locked. Everything was fine, but it didn't feel fine. The next morning, I told myself it was probably just exhaustion. I hadn't been sleeping well, and I've read enough to know your brain plays tricks on you when you're overtired. But still, I couldn't shake the image of that shadow. It wasn't like a light flickering or a car passing outside. It was inside. The shape, the direction, even the way it moved, it felt deliberate, like it noticed me. I don't think I've ever felt anything like that before. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not Evan, not my friends, definitely not my parents. I already knew what they'd say. You're stressed. You work too much. Maybe it's time to move. But I don't think moving would fix anything. It's not the apartment. Or maybe it is, but it's also me. I keep circling back to the idea that I left something unfinished here, or maybe it's the other way around, something unfinished with me. And whatever it is, it's patient. It doesn't show up all the time. It waits like it knows I'll come looking again eventually. One weekend, I decided to really dig into the apartment's past, not just what I remembered or thought I felt, but the actual records. I spent hours combing through old property listings, archived rentals, even went down to the city records office. I found floor plans from the early 2000s, leasing logs, old renovation notices. That's when I saw it. The name of the previous tenant before me, listed 2 years prior. It wasn't Evan's name or mine, but the last name matched ours. Same spelling, which isn't that common. McConnell. I stared at the document for a solid 10 minutes before realizing the first name had been redacted, probably due to privacy policies. I tried to ask the clerk, played it off like I thought there was a mistake, and I wanted to verify the record, but she just shook her head and told me I need a subpoena for anything more detailed. That felt like a wall I couldn't climb. But the fact that someone with our last name had officially rented that unit years before I moved in, it wasn't something I could ignore. I went back home and stood in the living room for a while, looking around like I expected something to suddenly make sense. It didn't, but I started paying attention in new ways. I measured the closet where I found the blanket, noticed scratch marks along the inside edge, like someone had tried to wedge it shut or force it open. I pulled up a floorboard behind the radiator that felt loose, and underneath there was a dusty Polaroid photo of a kid standing by a window. The picture was blurry, but I swear it looked like Evan at maybe 6 or 7 years old, wearing a shirt I vaguely remembered him owning. The more I stared at it, though, the less sure I was. The kid's face had this strange, almost warped expression, not from the picture being damaged, Just something about the way he was looking at the camera. Eyes wide, mouth a little open, like he was being caught doing something he wasn't supposed to. I flipped the photo over and saw something written in pen. He knows. That was it. Just 2 words. My hand started shaking and I had to sit down. I felt like I'd found something I was never meant to see. After I found that photo, something in me changed. I stopped trying to figure it out and started just observing everything around me, like I was waiting for something else to reveal itself. The energy in the apartment shifted, not in a big, dramatic way, more like subtle patterns. Lights flickering just once when I passed by. My phone screen turning on by itself at 3:17 a.m. for 3 nights in a row, always with the home screen lit up on the photo gallery, even though I hadn't touched it. I started hearing these faint knocks at night, always in threes. Not loud, not threatening, but steady. Once it was on the inside of the bathroom door while I was brushing my teeth. I swung the door open instantly, expecting what, I don't know, but nothing was there. That was the worst part. It was never anything, just enough to let me know I wasn't imagining it, but not enough to ever be sure. I tried recording things at night, just using an old phone propped up in the hallway, set to record audio. I got hours of silence. But on one of the nights, around 4:22 a.m., I caught something. It was faint, but clear enough with headphones. A voice, not a full sentence, more like a whisper that cuts in and out like breath on a mic. It said, "Don't remember." That's all. Just that. I replayed it probably 50 times, trying to be sure it wasn't just background noise or some kind of glitch, but it was there. Don't remember. The exact words I've been struggling against for months. That same night, my smoke alarm went off for 5 seconds, then stopped. No smoke. No explanation. I didn't sleep again after that. I just sat on the couch till the sun came up, listening for more. But there was nothing. The apartment was dead quiet. Peaceful even, which somehow made it feel worse. Like whatever it was had said what it needed to, and now it was done. After that night, things genuinely started to feel different. Not quieter, not safer, just emptier. Like something had packed up and left. No more knocks, no more lights flickering, no more weird dreams. It was like whatever had been pushing at the edges of my memory just gave up. Or maybe it got what it wanted. I started going through the motions again. Work, errands, meals. I even stopped checking the drawer with the sticker. The photo with he knows is still on my nightstand, but I don't look at it anymore. I tried for a while to go back to my therapist and keep digging, but every time I bring up the apartment or that time in my life, I'd get this overwhelming feeling of pressure in my chest, like my body was physically trying to shut down the conversation. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up altogether. I've told a few friends parts of the story, watered-down versions, and they all give me the same look, half curiosity, half discomfort. One guy asked if I thought the place was haunted, and I laughed. Not because I thought it was funny, but because it felt so far from the truth. A ghost would have been easier, cleaner. This wasn't about some presence floating around moaning in the walls. It was about erasure, about something being removed from my life so precisely and thoroughly that I only noticed the shape it left behind. And the scariest part is knowing that whatever it was, my family helped cover it up. Not with lies, but with silence, with avoidance, with these careful, practiced reactions that made it clear I wasn't supposed to keep asking. So I stopped, but the feeling didn't go away. A few weeks ago, I went to visit my parents. First time in a while. We were having dinner, and everything was normal, too normal. Evan was there too, sitting across from me, laughing at something my mom said about one of her church friends. And out of nowhere, I asked, "Do you guys remember the apartment on Rosewood?" The whole table just froze. My mom dropped her fork. My dad cleared his throat and stood up to grab more water, even though his glass was full. Evan stared at me for a second, then looked down at his plate. No one said a word. I felt like I'd broken some unspoken rule, like I'd said something that violated a deal they'd all agreed to. I waited a beat, then said, "Never mind," and the conversation picked up again as if nothing had happened. But it was there, the crack in the mask. That instant panic in all their faces told me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining anything. After dinner, Evan pulled me aside as I was putting on my shoes. He didn't say much, just stood there for a second, then said, "Whatever you think happened, just let it be. It's over now." And that was it. I looked at him, tried to press, but he walked off, back to the kitchen, like it had never happened. That was the last time I saw him in person. We haven't spoken since, and I haven't brought it up again. Not to anyone. I still live in the same place. I still have the photo, the sticker, the blanket. I don't know why I keep them. Part of me thinks maybe one day it'll all make sense, like there'll be this moment where it all clicks and I'll finally understand what happened, what was taken from me, and why everyone worked so hard to make sure I'd never find out. But that moment never comes. And every time I think about moving away, I get this weird sensation in my gut. Like if I leave, I'll lose my only connection to the truth. Whatever it is, or was. So now, 5 years later, I'm still here. Same apartment, same job, same uneasy quiet that never really leaves, no matter how normal things seem. I've stopped actively looking for answers, but not because I don't care anymore. It's more like I've accepted that I might never get them. Or worse, that if I did, they wouldn't help. There's this strange kind of peace that comes with letting go of the need to explain everything. I'm not saying I'm fine. I still get that feeling sometimes, like I'm being watched. Not in a paranoid way, but like something is keeping tabs. Like a presence that doesn't need to show up anymore because it knows I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not. I've tried. I've looked at listings, even packed a box once. But the idea of leaving this place makes me feel like I'd be abandoning something. Something important. Something that still belongs to me, even if I don't remember why. People don't talk about this kind of thing. Everyone wants stories with resolutions. Need arcs. A lesson. A moral. But I don't have any of that. All I have are pieces. A sticker. A blanket. A blurry photo with handwriting I can't identify. A hallway I swear I've run down before. A voice that told me not to remember. And I didn't. Not really. I never got the memories back. No flashbacks. No repressed truths suddenly surfacing in the shower. Just this lingering sense that something happened here in this exact space, and it changed everything. But no one will tell me what. And the weirdest part, the part that keeps me up at night, is that after that last whisper, that last knock, that last flicker of lights, it just stopped. Completely. Like whatever it was had done its job. Or maybe I finally did what it wanted. I let go. I stopped asking. And it never came back. I still don't know what that means. But I live with it. Every day.